Hello, good evening. This is really a special event. We're in very, very challenging times. I'm living in New York. Enough about me. I'm a nurse in healthcare. Enough about me. And so it's an evening like this, and it's the Jewish National Fund that's bringing lots of people together from across the country and some friends in Israel to kind of take a breath, relax, and talk about food, talk about cooking, and more significantly, talk about spices with the spice master, Lior Lev Sercarz. Lior is the director and visionary behind the Galilee Culinary Institute, of which Jewish National Fund is helping to build the North by putting in an anchor of education, building homes, bringing healthcare, creating jobs, bringing tourism. We're building the North, we're building the South. But tonight is going to be, we're going to have some fun for a half hour. We're going to talk about food. We're going to hope you're going to continue watching some of the other Jewish National Fund programming and just taking a half hour out of your day, taking a breath, learning, sharing, educating, and we're all in this together. So I'm thrilled to introduce my friend, someone who I absolutely have a crush on, who is an award-winning chef and a store owner, and I'll let him tell you about Le Boite cookbooks that are incredible. His most recent one is really the one you all have to have because he's gonna just spice up your everyday cooking into an adventure. So Lior, in the store in Manhattan, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Lior here at Le Boite. Thank you, Cheryl, for the great introduction and the very, very kind words. Super exciting for me to do this, as Cheryl said, in these very interesting and challenging times that we're all going through. To kick it off, I guess it's the new housekeeping rule. You should probably have one of these things on an ongoing basis to sanitize your hand. Cheryl, you have yours? Cheryl will show you hers in a second. Great. Sanitizer. If you need something to keep you going through the next half an hour or so, this is my turmeric lemonade that I drink on an ongoing basis. Cheryl went with wine. Good option too. I vote for that. Israeli wine. Yeah, fantastic. I went with Indian turmeric and ginger. So l'chaim to Thursday and to all of you. We just wanted to, spend a little time with you all and talk to you a bit about cooking and spices. Everybody's obviously home, as they should be, saying the person who is at work currently, but, is a necessity business, apparently. You are at home, you are cooking, you are hopefully making some great meals and dishes and at least making the most out of these challenging times. Why not tackle the thing that nobody wants to do, which is your spice cabinet or your spice drawer, which is usually kind of a dark hole where you keep on pushing things for years and years because you think that they're never going to go bad. I'd like to start with a simple invitation. Go to your kitchen. If you need to pour yourself a drink to handle the reality, do that. And empty basically your spice drawer, spice cabinets, anything that you have spice related. We're not going to talk about shoes and handbags. That's a whole other intervention, like Cheryl beautifully did. Cheryl, you want to show everybody your kitchen? Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. Oh, here you go. Yeah, so put everything on a table. How does one even know if this is working or not? I don't know. Yep, thank you, Gary. Can you still hear me? Wave if you
Good.
can.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. So first thing you want to do, you're going to take all of your spices and put them on a table and start asking yourself, what do you even have in front of you? Some stuff is alarming. It's from the grandmother who's no longer with us or the ex-husband's boyfriend's fiance. It's a lot of memorabilia that shouldn't be used for cooking. If you like the jar, for the jar, put it in a living room with a spotlight on and a plaque. But if you are planning to cook with them, the first and most interesting exercise is to just open that jar of whatever spice you have, smell a little bit, see if it has any scent coming out of it, taste a tiny little bit of that spice. It should have both scent and taste. If it has none of the above, This is time to say goodbye to the jar of spices. Maybe you want to keep the jar itself because it's a good jar, but aside from that, the content has to go. The good news about spices is that they don't go bad. You'll never get sick from a very old spice. However, at some point, it's pure dust. Cheryl, any
I have a
thoughts on that?
question. If it doesn't move in the jar, if it's solidified, it's time to go. It's not
So
moving.
if it doesn't move, it's still alive. It could be just that humidity came into the jar and it's just caked. Basically, it's solidified, but it still has a good smell and a good taste. Don't get rid of it right away. I see you nodding. Yeah, then if it's not the case, then definitely. The challenge with a lot of the spices that you purchase in your grocery store, online and whatnot, there's no date of reference when they were bought, how long they're good. What I would suggest is that whenever you buy a product that doesn't have a date on it, just use a pen or a Sharpie or something and write on the label somewhere, please use me before, and add 1 year, I'm sorry, to the date of purchase. 1 year is not a magic number. They don't go bad again after a year and 1 month or a year and a half. It's just to give you a point of reference. And it's, again, as I said earlier, sometimes alarming of how long people tend to keep their spices. Yes, Cheryl.
Buying, in those big supermarkets when you're single, not a good idea.
Yeah.
Because this expired 3 years ago.
So unlike some of the wines that could actually age, some of the wine, not all of it, spices don't really age well at all. And I know it's very tempting. You go to a couple of stores and it's discounted, or you can buy in large volume. Just be, honest with yourself. I mean, how much pepper or how much paprika or how much cumin are you actually using? There's no need to buy, I would say, more of 3 to 6 months worth of spices. And if you find that you're using some spices in smaller quantity, just buy smaller jars. There's no right or wrong. You can buy whole spices, you can buy ground spices. They're both great. The idea is just to buy what you need, keeping in mind that it is a produce. It happens to be a dry produce, but the same way that you don't shop for 30 pounds of salads every time you go to the supermarket, don't buy large amount of spices.
I have a question. So buying whole nutmeg versus buying ground nutmeg, which is better?
There again, no right or wrong. If you have the energy, time, and patience to grind or grate nutmeg every time that you want to use nutmeg, then I salute you. You're doing something great. Whole nutmeg will definitely keep better and longer if it's whole versus ground. However, if you don't have the time or a grinder or a nutmeg grater or whatnot, buying ground nutmeg is totally okay as long as you use nutmeg. So it's just understanding about who you are and how you cook and how much time you have for cooking. I should say that, and I say it every time I talk about food and spices, not everybody should cook. Some people should focus on eating. But for those who choose to cook, it's okay to use ground or whole spices. Whatever you feel comfortable with, that's what you should be doing. Another big interesting about spices that a lot of us don't use a lot of spices because we weren't born into a certain environment where spices were being used on a daily basis. I am a living proof to it, being born to a 3/4 Ashkenazi family where spices were not the main thing on the menu. I've learned only later on in life. The beautiful thing about spices is that you could apply them onto everything. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, beverages, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, it's totally up to you. But basically there's not one opportunity. You could use them all day long on pretty much everything. And that's part of what we're trying to do these days, especially when people cook so much and eat at home, is to really get them excited by using spices in an unfamiliar way to make things just a bit more exciting every time. Cheryl?
Well, I was raised in a very Ashkenazi home where the only spice was onion. So it's exciting to learn, and having spent time with you and spending time in Israel and learning all about the flavors, it radically alters your life. And again, and I'm really doing this from the heart, Lior's new book of Mastering Spice takes chicken and does it in multiple different ways. And I said to him, our next class, I want to do tangine chicken, and he can do a lemon chicken, and we can do an Ashkenazi chicken all in a half hour. But I say that because learning about spices and the changes to the food are just ultimately dramatic. So things like, and I told him I was going to do this, barley. I was raised on pearl barley. All it had was onion in it. And so I was going to stump you and say, what do I add to the pearl barley to make it zeus it up, as we say in Brooklyn?
So the nice thing to kind of get familiar with using spices, and there's a lot of them at home, and some are single, some are blends, and how do you even start? I'd say the basic, most simple thing to do is just to take a little bit of that spice, whether it's a blend or a single, and taste it. Obviously, don't eat a whole jar of spices. It's not a pleasant experience, but just a tiny little bit taste so you are familiar with the taste that it has. And then if you are going to cook barley like Cheryl, so cook it the same way that you like to cook it. And then once it's cooked, take small portions of on a spoon or a fork or something, and sprinkle different spices on that cooked barley so that you have an understanding of what the spice could do to the barley, so that next time when you're making barley again, you'll have a better idea, and then you could start seasoning it versus using something from the beginning and realizing that you actually don't care for that particular combination. And you could do the same with pretty much anything, with a yogurt, with a fruit, with a vegetable. Take something that's already ready to eat, raw or cooked, sprinkle different spices on it as a fun exercise, and taste them together. Some you might not like, great, fine, at least you know, but some you will like, and life will never be the same again.
So the one that's interesting is with the Italian blends of spice. I love Middle Eastern spices, general category, and Italian blends of spices. So explain to us how those two categories, we're not cooking tonight, so we're going to do that in a few weeks. But tonight we're just talking about how do you take the stuff that you've been cooking on a regular basis. It could be fish or it could be a piece of chicken, two kind of bland things. And how do I make them like really jazz it up for Shabbos tomorrow night, or jazz it up for next Tuesday because it's Tuesday and I'm still going to be home?
So we personally, myself and at La Boite, I mean, we really don't make a distinction between the different origins, whether it's a Middle Eastern or whether it's Italian or whatever. To me, it's spices. It's a flavor profile. It's a certain scent and flavor. And even if, you know, a lot of time when you talk about an ethnicity, some people have an idea of what that ethnic food is. So we try to break those barriers and saying, you know, if you want to make your famous roast chicken or broiled salmon, for most people at first to say, how about you use curry? They said, well, I'm not a big fan of Indian food. However, if you call it a blend of turmeric, clove, and cumin, all of a sudden, it sounds completely different. So we name our blends, or the blends that we suggest that people do, it's just a blend of spices with a particular flavor profile. To your question, that same dish that you're making over and over again, that same chicken or that same vegetable or that same fish, try every time to apply a new spice or a spice blend on it, and you'll see how it changes dramatically, the flavor profile, even the texture, let alone the visuals, of course, without changing the way you cook it, because I don't want to add complexity to the recipe. I want you to feel comfortable in what you're doing, so the result is great. So same recipe, just with different seasoning. If a recipe called for a spice and you don't have it, don't give up on the recipe. Try to substitute with another spice. You can remove it completely. It's still going to taste fine. As long as you season your food properly, then chances are that it's going to be just delicious and exciting. And it's going to take that same old salad or chicken or pasta or rice, and it's going to take them to a different level.
And also the salt and the pepper do count too with the spices. Am I correct?
So it's very important to season things properly. Salinity or salt, very important. Pepper or heat, for that matter, whether it's black pepper, whether it's a chili or a chili powder, it doesn't matter. Also, other flavor profiles that are really important are acidity, whether you use lemon juice, you use vinegar, you use sumac. Acid is a very important flavor. Sweetness, not by just sprinkling sugar on everything, but it could be dried fruit, it could be molasses, it could be different spices that have sweetness, and some elements of bitterness and on and on. So all of these are very important every time that you're preparing something. I also don't make a distinction between sweet and savory. When I prepare a dessert, I like to have a little bit of savoriness into it, and the other way around. I think it makes things very exciting. So from your morning coffee or breakfast dishes all the way through the day, think about, can I add a spice to it? What can the spice do to it?
Well, and the thing that I know, having taken the spice class, that's how I originally met you at your spice store, Le Boite, where you mix certain blends. How do I learn, other than, you know, taking a spice class or whatever, how do I know, or just do I go with gut and taste of what do I mix the cardamom with, or what do I mix the turmeric with? Or I love Aleppo pepper. It's a hot, spicy, and you have a great version of it that I love. So what do I do? I'm not just going to put Aleppo pepper into a pasta. What else how do I learn how to add something?
You can put Aleppo into your pasta. And as I said earlier, whatever it is that you're gonna, let's say tonight, you're gonna have dinner, you're gonna have 2 or 3 different things. If you're open to this challenge today or tomorrow or another day, and take one of these dishes and all of them and take small portions out of each dish in spoons, teaspoons, or forks, and start sprinkling whatever spices you have in your kitchen, again, blends or single, and taste them together. That will give you a great indication of what that spice could do to your food. So that next time when you're preparing your pasta, for that matter, then you'll know. It's also important to season as you cook. Don't wait for the end and then start adding seasoning, because you'll eat a lot of seasoning and a lot of bland food. They don't mix. They need to be seasoned as you cook or as you go.
So you have a blend, and I've used it, and but I can make it at home from the jars that I have. The OMG blend. It's onion, mustard, and garlic, and yours is in your, you know, proportion. But that's something that I've been using a lot of, because I can throw it into a pasta, and but I've been putting it on fish and on chicken. And so, you know, in learning how to mix up some other blends, so to speak, as I said, like I like Italian-y flavors versus Middle Eastern flavors.
Sure. So again, the OMG is a great example. The onion, mustard, garlic. The idea is this one and other ones. Tonight you've used the OMG for pasta, great. Tomorrow night, the same blend will work great on a fish or on a chicken or on a vegetable. Try little by little, start adding to the dish. It's most likely going to work. If you're up for the challenge of making your own blends, that's super exciting. And I'm very excited when people blend their own. It's also a great way to use up a lot of small bits and pieces in jars that you have around and you don't know what to do with them, because you bought a jar of, I don't know what, ginger for a cake, you know, 6 months ago, and you have no idea what to do with that ginger. So if you start mixing them, like you've done in the class here, this is basically what we do here. Start mixing them with other spices and start tasting them and start applying them to whatever food, cold, hot, fried, cooked, it doesn't matter. It usually works really, really well. And even if it doesn't work great with one preparation, don't give up on that blend. Try to use it up in something else.
So one of the questions was about what's an unexpected spice blend that, you know, you can kind of throw together. So let's say I'm not ordering Indian food right now because my store closed, my restaurant closed near me. What would be an Indian-ish kind of blend that I can throw on to some grilled meats and just feel like I'm being transported away?
So, you know, there's some familiar flavors like turmeric and cumin and cardamom and clove and nutmeg. All of those very quick, usually found in, again, I say most household. It's things that are easily available, or even the local grocery store, the delivery would have them. you can make a quick mix of those 5-6 ingredients and apply them tonight on a meat and grill them. Tomorrow, if you have a little bit of squash and a bunch of vegetables, you can saute them all together and blend them and make a fantastic soup with all of them. Or if you wanted to make some rice and just add it to the cooking water of that rice, and maybe Sunday it will be a pan-seared salmon with these, and it would work great. Or even for breakfast, if you wanted to go with a more savory approach and make a quick yogurt with that same spice blend and eat it with a few, you know, an egg or some vegetables, or make even some deviled eggs with that spice blend, it would be fantastic. So one blend, using up ingredients that you have at home, just educate yourself in terms of the balance. Some of them are stronger, some are hot, some are salty. Just educate yourself so that you get better at it.
And so it's a good idea, though, when there's like a calm moment like we're having now. This to me is very calming. To get a jar, to grab a bunch of the spices, as you're saying, to maybe Google or get on Amazon a copy of your book, and to learn a little bit more about blending, which is, you know, something important to figure out kind of what does the turmeric go with, or the cardamom, or the allspice, or, you know, just get some general kind of education. Make up a little jar of it so I can have it and adjust it accordingly instead of a one shot, dump it in and throw it out, right? Kind of.
Well, yeah, you definitely want to take some notes about what you've just blended, whether you're using spoons or tablespoon, or whether you're using a scales and grams. Make a note of it, because this will become your recipe, and hopefully it's a great one, and then you'll make it over and over again. You'll see that you're also using more spices if they're ready to use. If it's already a blend, you don't need to start grinding and mixing them and assembling them and all of that. And to your point, it's a great time, especially with Passover and Pesach coming, and you want to do some spring cleaning, do pull out all of these random jars of things, and you could do the same regardless with your pantry. It's something that I like to do a lot, especially these days when I cannot just run to the store every 3 seconds. It's doing what I call pantry cooking. You'd be surprised how many great ingredients you have lying around that you can make a great meal or a great dish with without needing to go to the store right away. With some canned stuff, preserved stuff, some legumes, some rice, some of the rice is,
Well,
you know,
I
not.
got the bag of rice here because part of the family's Sephardi, so we can use rice for the holidays. We got the barley, also beans. Jody had asked me, how to use this up some interesting bean meals, because a lot of people are trying to be creative.
So the beauty of beans, whether you have dried beans like you have, and
Yeah.
I know people bought canned beans like there's no tomorrow. I'm waiting to see what's going to happen with all of that leftover canned beans, but that's a whole other chapter that you and I could do. Once you soak your beans or your chickpeas or whatever you have overnight, and then you strain the water, and then you simply bring them to a simmer with water and some spices. So here's a great opportunity to season your beans or your chickpeas and whatnot with spices, whole or ground, so they absorb more flavor. Now you have cooked beans. You could go various ways. You can blend them with some of the liquid to make a bean soup. Day one. Day two, those chilled beans could be tossed with some more spice, olive oil, and maybe some crumbled feta and olives, and make a great salad. And on day three, with a bunch of leftover of vegetables and meat, you can put them in a baking dish, top them with some breadcrumb or cheese, if you're doing a vegetarian option, or whatnot, and then bake them as a casserole. It's the same beans that you cooked on day one that could be used on 4 or 5 days in various preparation. And if you're up for it and you're pulling out your little RoboCoop or food processor, make yourself a bean spread with some olive oil or some yogurt, and you have a quick, or you eat, or you spread it over some bread. Or matzah, yeah, why not? Some matzah. And so that's the beauty of it. He's trying to cook a few basic things and prepare them different way each day, so cooking doesn't become a burden or a very long thing.
Right.
There's some questions in the chat for Chef Lior about what his favorite spices are.
Yes, I was going to ask him that. Yeah. What is your favorite spice, Lior?
So, it's tricky to pick one. We work with about 150, and just picking one, I'd say that, being from the Middle East, I'm more oriented by nature to things like cumin and coriander and cardamom and cinnamon and caraway seeds. Funny enough, all of them start with a C, and some chilies. So I'm more oriented, but I do love all of them equally. And I force myself in a very good way to try other spices that I didn't grow up eating and discover that I do like them. And some of them are an acquired taste at first, but not really a favorite one. And I'm happy to take another question, Gary, if you have one.
I'm looking to, well, how to Zeus up the holiday meals, so I do want to say that Lior has a wonderful newsletter that you can sign up for and send him an email at, what is your email, Lior?
So a couple of things you could do. A is like, thank you, Cheryl, from being my agent for La Boite. Do sign up for our newsletter.
The Galilee Culinary Institute, and my third love, because I have my daughters and my grandchildren. So up there in the ranks of life, Jewish man. So you're up there.
So thank you. So yeah, a couple of things. A, you would be very happy if you joined our newsletter. It's very easy on laboiteny.com. At the contact sheet, we send daily emails, especially these days, with tons of recipes and ideas of how to cook, how to prepare. We have a fantastic program that started yesterday for Passover. Every day we do at least one or two recipes from French chefs of ours around the world of how to, kind of bring some excitement to very familiar dishes, and with great wine pairings from our friend Josh Greenspan also, who did some great wine Israeli pairings. So that's one great way to know about what to do.
From Josh.
Yep.
Brought it home in the bag. I didn't claim
it. So that's one way of really getting some great ideas of recipes. And for Passover, again, cook what you like to cook. If it's the matzo ball soup, if it's the brisket, if it's the chicken, everybody has kind of their own favorite. Take that same dish and decide that this year you're going to make it a little bit different, not because of the method, but because of the seasoning. So we are having tonight, and the email went out already, you can check it later, the famous brisket. So this one is with coffee, so with ground coffee. So it's a coffee rub brisket. It is super delicious. It's done by my friend Mike Solomonov from Philadelphia, who's also part of our culinary council for GCI. Yeah. So that's great. We're going to have a really fun spin on, we're going to have a fun spin on gefilte fish tomorrow night from Jeffrey Oskovich from Gefilteria. So a lot of great content. And even if you don't get these recipes on time, try to rethink your Passover menu. What can I add to my chicken soup, to my brisket, to my macaroons? There's a lot of great opportunities. And a lot of great fun, especially if you have grandkids or kids that are with you right now. And I know that I love doing it with my two little devils at home, is to make a fun exercise out of it and let them smell the spices and have them add whatever they want to add to the food.
And so I know we're getting close to the end, but my picture is up of the Galilee Culinary Institute, of which Lior and Michael Salmanov and many other very talented people are putting together. It's a joy to be working with them. And I do want to say, in closing, we're all going through very challenging times. This is crazy. And there's a lot of personal introspection, and we also have to sometimes step out of our introspection and think about the other people and what's going on in the world. And there's a lot going on. But certainly to understand that one of the threads of Jewish National Fund has been for over 100 years to support the land and the people and the education and the housing and the healthcare and the jobs and building. And so hopefully Lior and I will be back cooking again in a few weeks. And most significantly, to take care of yourselves, to take care of your families, and to really be able to some nights, some days, some moments like this, sometimes out of it and think about what else I can be doing. So whether it's learning how to cook and think about us and cooking in the Galilee, or certainly thinking about Jewish National Fund and thinking about how we can help people over there and everything else, deeply appreciated. And Lior, you can close it because I love you.
And please mention again how to sign up for the newsletter.
Yes. So a couple of things, very important. Thank you, Gary, for mentioning it. So any questions you have about life, not just cooking, feel free to email me. I will tackle
me,
it.
Cheryl on life, you on cooking. It's okay.
Yeah. Anything you want to know, things about what we've talked about today, some cooking tips, cooking recipes, questions about everything. Don't ask me about sport. That's not my thing. But you can email me at Lior, Lior, at laboiteny.com, and I'm going to spell it. It's LABOITENY.com. Send me any questions. Second of all, if you go to laboiteny.com, at the contact page, there's a place where you can sign up to the newsletter. We send those every day for the time being, and trying to get great updates. Thank you all for joining. Stay home, stay safe, hydrate, drink a lot of water, stay healthy, call people, cook.
And I'm going to do my JNF thing. Here's my JNF scarf. You know, cover your mouth, wash your hands, and think about, you know, everyone, you know, this is a universal problem that we're going through, so you can find me easily, and definitely Lior, who's just this calm voice and talent that's beyond wonderfulness. And let's all, you know, like kind of stay connected through this. And thank you, JNF, and thank you, Russell Robinson, and thank you, Gary.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Chef Lior. And you can watch more of our JNF programming and see the archive recordings if you go to our website, jnf.org/on-demand, jnf.org/on-demand. Take care, everyone.